Well, every week we get together with Rick Davis of Stone Court Capital and Jeanne Zaino of Zaino College to talk about the midterm elections, which are coming up in 6 months from right now. And today is certainly no exception. So, Rick, let me start with old business. Since we've been together, we had the primaries in Indiana and, more important, perhaps in Ohio. We saw J.D. Vance win, triumph with the Trump endorsement. But it wasn't the only one. There were 22 Trump endorsements. As I counted, he won every one.
That's right. He won. He cleans the tables in Ohio. J.D. Vance, a come-from-behind victory, which signaled the kind of influence that Donald Trump may have in Republican primaries nationwide. And I would say that there was nothing that indicated that J.D. Vance could pull this out without the Trump endorsement.
And Jeanne, tomorrow, we're going to have West Virginia as well as Nebraska. But in West Virginia, there's also another test a little bit between two Republicans, incumbent Republicans. They got redistricted, and so they had to have two races there. And one of them is really running with President Trump, who is really endorsing him. Yeah,
I mean, it's fascinating. Because of redistricting, we have two incumbent Republicans going against each other, worst case scenario for the party. And the Trump-endorsed candidate, Mooney, is doing very, very well, according to the polls. And, you know, I think there wasn't that long ago in politics in America where we would ask, do endorsements matter anymore? And I think one thing we can say about Donald Trump is he has shown that he could use this old-style political tool to his advantage. He has out-fundraised the RNC. He has had candidates going down to Mar-a-Lago. And as you mentioned, the candidates he's endorsed so far have done very, very well. The problem is when you pivot to the general election, is he going to prove that these people can win, or are they going to lose to the Democrats? And of course, people like Mitch McConnell and old-style Republicans are very concerned because, of course, this is a president who lost the White House, the Senate, and the House. In primaries, he does really well. In generals, it's still an open question.
Rick, one of the viewers just wrote in and said, why does President Trump want to be a kingmaker rather than be the king himself? Is this taking anything away from his running in 2024, or is this precursor to that?
I think this is a precursor to that, right? If he can show that he still has follow-on strength to get these people elected, especially those who wouldn't get elected without him, then he's going to make the argument to the party, you need me more than I need you, which is exactly the kind of argument he loves to make. He's going to draft himself into the selection if he's allowed to, and that's exactly the strategy he has. But I think it's too early to tell. May's a long month in primary history. Even though we have a couple of primaries tomorrow, the really big stuff comes later in the month. And we're going to see whether or not he can continue this string or whether or not some of these candidates he's endorsed are going to fall by the wayside.
And one of the big ones this month is actually next week, Jeanne, in Pennsylvania, as we have Dave McCormick up against Mehmet Oz, Dr. Mehmet Oz, which turns out to be almost a proxy war at this point. It's sort of former President Trump against former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
It is. It's fascinating. And you look at the polls coming out there, and once again, you're seeing Donald Trump's endorsement of Dr. Oz has put him up in the polls. They're still within, in most polls, the margin of error. And even in one poll, we have Dave McCormick running third to Kathy Barnett, but still Oz, slightly outpacing them. But of course, he is being attacked, a lot of opposition research being dropped in this race in terms of things like his relationship with the Turkish government and Erdogan, and people like former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo raising the issue of whether Dr. Oz is in some way a national security concern. I don't know if that's going to resonate with the voters in Pennsylvania as much, but it certainly has been an ugly and very expensive race out there.
Well, and Rick, it was clear that Dave McCormick wanted that endorsement. When he didn't get it, there was some thought that, well, okay, maybe President Trump will endorse Mehmet Oz, but not go too far. And then we heard him really come out full-throated and go after McCormick. This is part of what he had to say.
Yeah, this has been a real turnaround for the Oz campaign. When Trump abandoned the McCormick team, which is made up of a lot of former Trump officials, one of the things that was left on the table was, well, maybe he'll just phone it in. But he hasn't phoned it in. He's shown up, and he's been a real factor in the Oz campaign. But I agree with Jeanne. Watch out for Kathy Barnett. I mean, she's come from behind. She's now, even with the field, they're all basically within the margin of error, and the fact that she's been able to get late breakers is a good indication of her potential success.
Yeah, and it is fascinating because Donald Trump, I agree with the question that somebody wrote in. He has become a kingmaker. I keep calling him the new Boss Tweed. People are going down to Mar-a-Lago. We've even seen candidates they've been running commercials just to appeal to him in the Palm Beach area to try to get his endorsement. These can be local races, state races across the country. He has really proven himself. And when I say he's outraised the RNC, in the last 6 months of 2021, he outraised them every day except 2. These are enormous numbers for Donald Trump. And, it makes him a kingmaker. It also puts him into a position, to Rick's point, if he chooses to run in 2024, he is going to be a juggernaut for the Republican Party.
Rick, it seems so far, at least, there's no question that Donald Trump has substantial control over the Republican Party. That does not necessarily translate into the polls in November. And our update here starts with the primaries, but it's really targeted on the midterms. Is there a chance that, in fact, people are giving hostages to fortune here?
Yeah, absolutely. They don't know really what his uptake's going to be in the general election. Remember, he's been a singularly unsuccessful president. He lost the presidency, he lost the Senate, and he lost the House for Republicans. So his track record on general elections is horrible by modern standards. And so he actually has a lot to prove that these people who he's helping get elected can actually make it through a general election. Can Dr. Oz be a United States Senator from Pennsylvania? Will J.D. Vance make it through the general election in Ohio? And that is going to have one important factor on his ability to run for president. And of course, we have another shoe to drop, and that is the January 6th commission, which will be targeted at Donald Trump. And he's going to have to overcome that at a time when he's still trying to get votes for the general election for his candidates.
And I would say a second shoe to drop is going to be the road decision and how much the abortion issue plays into Democrats. In a year they should not do very well getting them more energized to get out to vote.